For a lot of us, potential does not pay attention to your prayers. It actually distracts you.
There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Times the bravest thing you'll ever do is leave. Times the bravest thing you'll ever
drain me. The truth, when you heal, the people who
I used to pray for peace in places that only caused me pain. Tried to fix broken people just to feel whole again. Lost myself trying to be enough for everyone but me. Now I breathe through the ache. I sit with my silence. I found power in the pause. And baby, this is my rebirth. Melodic, catchy and repeatable. This the soft life anthem, rebirth season. No more chaos, I found my reason. Breathe in peace, exhale my demons. I don't chase love now, I become the freedom. The storyteller episodes, blending kids, one soul, no time for regrets. Used to cry in the dark, now I coach through the depths. Lost my job, lost myself, but I found my breath. Turn pain into power, yeah. I live with no debt. Debt to my body, debt to my truth. I journal my trauma, I mothered my youth. The girl I used to be had to grieve it too. But the woman I'm becoming, that's the breakthrough. Melodic, catchy and repeatable. This the wonder body's dead to none and fitting twas. Tried it, emotional build, channel building.
Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to Truth, Trust, and Trajectory with your girl, Nchukym Bee. This is the place where healing meets transformation, and apparently a little bit of delusion too, because today we're going to be talking about that moment where the universe flips the mirror and says, sweetheart, it's actually you. Yeah. You're not just the main character. Sometimes you're also the plot twist. So if you've ever been halfway through your healing journey, you'll come to realize that doing your affirmations, burning your sage, journaling your trauma, it's literally like a full-time job. And suddenly life hits you with, okay, cool. Now fix the part you keep blaming others for. That's the part that nobody tells you about. And that's actually that's where the real work starts. So it's easy to call everyone toxic until the mirror actually starts talking back at you. All right, so let's actually talk about it. When I first started this healing thing, this healing process, I thought the goal was to fix everyone around me. My ex was the problem. My mom was the reason. My job was the trigger. My kids, God, they were the test. But somewhere between crying on the bathroom floor and listening to Green Brown at 2 a.m., I realized The common denominator in every single situation was actually me. And baby, woo, that realization will humble you faster than overdrafting your account on payday. And that shit hurts. So let's be honest. The first time you realize that you have toxic traits, your ego literally throws a full blown tantrum. Like, no, it's not me. I'm self aware. I do the shadow work. Yeah. But you're also still emotionally distant when people try to love you. You over explain because you crave validation and you shut down instead of communicating. That's literally the stuff that no one wants to post about. Self awareness without accountability is just spiritual gossip. Take that and catch it. Okay. And I can also laugh about it because now I remember being there. You know, when you're scrolling through quotes on Instagram thinking, this one is for my haters. And then halfway through, you realize, oh, wait, that's actually about me. That's when the real work actually starts. Now, let's go a little deeper because this part right here is where people fall off of their healing journey. Everyone loves the pretty part, the vision board, the routines, the soft life. But the real growth, that's literally in the ugly cry, the awkward silence, the apology that you really never wanted to give. I had to learn that growing doesn't come from the person who hurt you changing. It actually comes from you deciding you don't need closure to move forward. Closure is often another way of asking someone to make your healing easier. So now I want to talk about the mirror moment. The one where you catch yourself doing the very thing that you swore that you would never do. And I've literally had that moment so many times where I've said, hey, I'm not going to continue to put up with this type of behavior. I'm not going to do this particular behavior for myself. I'm not accepting this from anyone else. And then I find myself in a habitual cycle with myself. It's like raising your voice like your parents did, or shutting down when someone loves you too hard. That's when you realize healing is not linear. It's actually layered. And sometimes the layer you uncover isn't pretty. It's defensive, reactive, or scared. And I remember the first time I realized I was emotionally unavailable. I actually put it into ChatGPT because I wanted to know, like, is it me? Like, am I the problem? Am I the drama? I really wanted to know that. So I put it into ChatGPT one day and, I asked Chat, I'm like, hey, like, what are the signs and symptoms of, a person that's emotionally unavailable? And some of the things that I got were really concerning because I'm like, oh my God, like, there's no way that I'm emotionally unavailable because I'm the one that gives all of the love. Like, I keep just pouring into people. Like, I'm this bubbly ball of happiness, love, and everything else, which I am, right? But this is the ugly side of ourselves that a lot of us really have a hard time facing, right? We don't want to hear that we might cause other people discomfort. We don't want to hear that we might be emotionally dismissive, right? We don't really want to deal with that. And so I'm like, me, Miss, I want a deep connection. And I found out that, I was actually afraid of intimacy, even though it was the one thing that I truly craved. But it was the only kind that I could actually control, right? So that was actually my trauma talking. That was survival mode disguised as standards. So sometimes the version of you that you're proud of is still a version that's built in defense. Ooh, that's a hard one. Let me tell you, the ego will fight accountability like it is literally allergic. I'll tell you, they need to apologize first. They need to understand your pain. But growth isn't about waiting on their sorry. It's realizing that you can still be a good person and have caused harm. And I think a lot of us really struggle with that because that's still a battle of the ego. We don't want to feel like we've unintentionally harmed someone because that would mean that we are emotionally reckless, right? Or maybe even a little emotionally careless. So you can still be healing and have hurt people along the way. That is a part of this process called human, being a human. That happens. And that's also what maturity looks like. It's not perfection, it's simply just awareness. So healing isn't about proving that you were right. It's about accepting when you were wrong. And listen, the first time you really call yourself out, it feels like a breakup because it is in a way. You're breaking up with your coping mechanisms, your victim mentality, and your comfort zone. But it's also the most freeing thing that you will ever do. Because when you stop trying to control how other people see you, you finally start to see yourself more clearly. Oh, that makes me laugh a little, only because y'all know that healing is literally get hell. Like 0 out of 10 stars. Because no one tells you that when it comes to relapse, it's going to happen. You're going to delete their number one day and re-download the thread the next. You'll say, I'm done, and then still check their story like it's homework. And that's okay. That is, again, the process of being human. Human humans make mistakes. Humans do human things. So sometimes we think that we're moving in one direction, and that is literally ultimately our intention. And then we can easily go back in the opposite direction. And it's because we've been stuck in a cycle or a pattern for so long that as we're trying to break past that and seek new ways and new healthier ways of not only dealing and addressing ourselves, right, but handling other people. It's like a sliding scale. It's the scales that balance like this, right? Sometimes it'll lean more left and sometimes it'll lean more right, but eventually it balances out. So healing doesn't mean that you stop feeling. It just means that you stop folding every time that you do. Now, somewhere around this part, you'll actually want to take a second and think. When was the last time you grew in silence? Not because you didn't want to talk about it, but because you finally realized it wasn't everybody's business. That's also maturity too. Growth gets quiet when you stop needing a witness. Y'all drop that in the comments if that hit, okay? All right, now, so I want to shift gears for a minute. Let's talk about accountability as self love. When I think about accountability, I think about reflecting and taking a deep look at my own actions, my own thought process, my own perspective, everything, right? But there was a point where I looked at accountability as punishment. And I know a lot of people see it that way, but really it's a form of compassion. It says, I love myself enough to stop letting me get in my own way. And I used to think that being wrong made me unworthy. Now I know that being self aware makes me unstoppable. You know how people say, I'm protecting my peace? Sometimes, baby, you're literally just avoiding your own growth. You can't heal what you keep labeling as someone else's fault. And protecting your peace isn't about hiding it from triggers, it's about mastering your response. So I'll give you guys a little example. There was a point, right, where I would continuously make the same choice to invite maybe a particular person back into my life, back into my space, right? And I thought that if I just kept showing up as the loving person that I was, that eventually they would have no choice but to change, right? They would take me into consideration, right? They would be more understanding of the effect of them coming in and out of my life and how that made me feel, right? But accountability is realizing that they're not responsible for being who they are to me. And I want to explain that. If that person doesn't see any fault in their ways, it doesn't matter how many times I explained it, or how many tears that I cried in front of them and behind them, right? Because that is the change that they were not willing to make. That is an understanding that they had not yet come to terms with in themselves. So they're going to keep showing up as them, not because they dislike me, not because they were showing up with malicious intent, but because that is just who they are, right? And so accountability is basically me saying at some point, I have to be responsible because I cannot put my happiness in this person's hands, right? They're not aware of it. They're not cognitive. They don't even fucking understand, right? So at some point I have to not only change the way that I interact with them, but also start cutting access and not allowing them to keep showing up in the same way that hurts me over and over again. Protecting your peace isn't about hiding it from triggers again. It is about mastering your response. So my response used to be, you know, allowing this person to come in, take whatever they get. And then, now we have to have a conversation about how it makes me feel. After doing that about 20 times, now I'm like, okay, you're no longer coming and taking anything from me because I do not consent to that. That is me protecting or mastering my response. I don't have to get irate or cry or scream or beg a person to change if they don't want to. And that's just what it is. So I just want to say this because somebody needed to hear it today. You do not have to prove your healing to anyone. You don't have to post your progress or explain your boundaries or justify your new standards. The people that are meant for your next chapter will fill your peace before they ever see your progress. Your healed energy speaks louder than your old explanations. And I know this to be true. So now I want to talk about laughing through it all because humor is literally medicine. I laugh at myself so often and so much because just watching the transformation within myself, and I know that it's obvious to other people around me that know me, right? The ways that I might have responded to an old situation or, the old version of me might have responded is way different than how I respond and react now. I literally used to think that I had to be serious to be spiritual. Now I realize that God's been laughing with me this whole entire time. Every mistake that I made, every time that I said, I'm done, and then I went back, it was all a part of the curriculum. This is why I say I'm not broken, I'm just under renovation. Because even in all the progress that I've made up until this point, I truly do feel like I'm still in the process of becoming, still. So there'll be more mistakes to be made, right? It doesn't have to be all mm, just super serious, right? I can laugh through all of this because there are things that at one point that I felt broke me, right? And almost ended me, but I'm still here. So I want us to do a mini reset together. I want you guys to take a deep breath in, hold it, and then exhale slowly. So let's do that together. We're going to breathe in for 6, hold for 4, and breathe out for 6. All right. Now I want you guys to repeat after me. I forgive myself for the things that I did when I did not know any better. I release the need to be perfect in order to be worthy. I am allowed to change, and I am proud of the person I am becoming. So, yeah, the real work starts when it is you that has to change, not them, not your past, not your circumstances, you. And that's not a punishment, it's an initiation. Because when you finally stop running from yourself, you realize you were the safe space that you were searching for the whole time. Healing starts when blame ends. Freedom begins when responsibility kicks in. So, this was a very short episode. And if it hit home for you guys, please take a screenshot and share it on IG or Threads. And make sure you guys tag me at Nchukym Bee. And tell me what part made you check your own mirror. And also remember, healing is ghetto, but baby, you were built for this. Make sure you guys subscribe, leave a review, and come back next week. We're going to be talking about something a little bit more controversial because next time we're going all the way there. Also, make sure you guys hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. And check out my website, Nchukym Bee, where I have interactive healing workbooks. I also have coaching sessions and tarot readings. Love y'all. Stay grounded, stay growing, and stay true to your trajectory. Okay, bye. For a lot of us, potential does not pay attention to your prayers. It actually distracts.
There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. Times the bravest thing you'll ever do is leave. Times the bravest thing you'll ever
drain me. The truth, when you heal, the people who